5 super effective tactics to re-engage with lapsed leads. No idea what that means. So what we're going to do is look at lapsed customers. So the way a lot of this stuff works is some of these webinars, we're kind of going along with some of the collateral we send out from the marketing team, or all our experts here at Dotdigital. We send out some sort of fact sheets, and I'm just doing a session today about one of those fact sheets, which I'll sort of show you about. So these are some of the things we're going to look at. Now, basically, we talk about lapsed customers, how to engage with them, but also I think it's important to understand how to identify them, right? That's kind of the bigger piece. So we're going to have a look at all those different options of how we can identify lapsed customers using the various different tools within the platform, and then also some strategies around maybe different channels, just a little chat around maybe the campaign approach and that sort of stuff. So we're going to look at things like a little bit of segmentation. So look at some of the cool stuff in segmentation to identify those lapsed customers in there. Understanding preference centers, again, it's quite important, this whole engagement piece about understanding, what the contacts are interested in, but also making sure they're very clear about what it is they're going to receive from us. When I say, and we'll see this a bit later on, sign up for my newsletter, I mean, what's a newsletter, right? Explain that. So maybe we say sign up for newsletter, but then give them an idea of what is in our newsletter. Is it offers? Is it market insight? Is it trends? Is it gossip? I don't know, whatever it might be. So we can look at the preference center very quickly and building that and what your options are with that. And then we just want to look at a few other channels. So I want to look at SMS channel. We talk about push notifications. If anyone's got an app, obviously one of the best ways, or one of the great ways to get messages through to your contacts is through the app. So we just very quickly look at SMS and the app nodes in our program builders, how we build that into the automated customer journeys that we can build within the Dotdigital program builder. And then I guess the other channels as well, I want to look at Facebook audiences and Google Ads audiences. So how can we take this sort of insight that we can find using Dotdigital, and how can we kind of follow up those guys, or chase those lapsed customers down those different channels. I just want to do an abandon browse program. It just sort of makes sense. It's not in the fact sheet or anything, but it makes sense that everyone that's has this tool understands how to build an abandon browse stuff. So there's a few bits along the way. So that's the plan, really. So first thing, I think, if we jump in, what I want to do, let's jump back into the platform, is, so this document that I'm kind of basing the session around is one of the many sort of fact sheets we send out. And it's worth maybe showing you where this is. Not everyone kind of, guess knows where all this stuff is. So two things then with training. So my lot, the training team, if you want to learn anything about the platform, then when you log in, you've always got the question mark. That is the support stuff. So all the training material that's created by our incredibly clever kind of support teams and all the experts of the platform and stuff like that. The knowledge base is the written word, and there is an article for virtually everything certainly through the platform, but also all of our integrations and connectors and Google Analytics and all that stuff. So really good source of information, training documentation. Then, of course, you've got the training videos, where we produce lots and lots of training videos for every single piece of functionality, all of the different parts of the platform, be it SMS or chat function or setting up whatever, Google Analytics, all that stuff. So please make the most of that. So that's the sort of training-y bit. But also, I guess for the marketing guys, our marketing teams also produce loads of stuff. And so it's worth kind of pointing out where that is. So if you log in, or actually that's not true, before you log in, if you go to dotdigital.com and you get to this page, this is, I guess, where you'd log in and all that good stuff, it's worth pointing out this stuff. People just go straight and log into the platform, and that's great. But what I would do, whether you are a client, a partner, whether you're thinking about coming across to Dotdigital, look at this stuff, regardless of all of that. There's loads of stuff here that you can use. So I'm just going to go to resources. So this is dotdigital.com. There's the learning drop-down menu there, and I'm just going to go to resources. It's worth looking at events. We put on over 100 and something events every year for training and that kind of stuff. Anyway, learning resources, and there's just loads and loads of stuff here, and sort of lots of different types of learning. We've got fact sheets, infographics. These are all recorded webinars. So this is one I did about SMS and all of that, lots of other experts record different webinars. You can download these or watch them online. So definitely have a look at some of this stuff. There's loads and loads of things in here. What are we going to look for? So I'm doing one today called, what is it? Didn't I say re-engage? Re-engage. Where am I? My goodness. Re-engage. And what were they? Lapsed leads. So I'm just going to see if I can find this document we're going to use today. I have got it open already, but just to show you how to find it, I'm sure you can work out a search function, but it's just worth doing. Please don't be patronized. So yeah, I went to dotdigital.com, learning resources, and you'll see the different topics and different types of material. Here's the one we're going to do today: 5 super effective tactics to re-engage lapsed leads. And again, you can see you can download this here, but really, really have a look at this. When we train clients and partners, we get a lot of questions about best practice and things we should do, or what should we focus on, or how do I improve the quality of my data and all that stuff. And all of that is in here. Just have a look through these documents. They're all yours, whether you're a client or not. You just have to kind of, the usual stuff, give your email details, and then you can look at all this good stuff. So definitely have a look at that anyway. And there's loads of different types of things that you've got there. Anywho, I've already got this thing open over here. So this is the document I'm using today, and again, we'll send out a link after the session to this. It's already on the resource center, as you saw there. So just things that we're going to go. I'm not going to read this out to you. I think we're all beyond that really, but just so I guess have a look at this. So the idea is, obviously, we know that we're churning our contact base or our customer base by about 22 to 25% year on year, and that's great. We know that, and it's really important to get new contacts and generate those new leads and everything else. But obviously, a massive part of that is identifying those people that are still there, that are still in the list, but they're maybe just not engaging. Okay, so there's a huge part of the database, as you'll know when we do all this stuff. We all know the 80-20 rule. 80% of your revenue is generated by 20% of your contacts and all that sort of stuff. So this is about identifying people before they become almost churn, where they just disappear off into history. Let's just identify them earlier on. So as they start to lapse, how can we identify that, and how can we maybe change that? So there's some good, interesting stuff in here. I'm not going to go through the whole thing because we're going to jump in and actually do some training. But just at the top here, it was quite interesting. I was reading through this last week when we kind of prepping for the session. It was about just the design of these emails. So we're going to talk a lot about functionality and identifying lapsed customers as they lapse, and how do we do that, and how do we identify maybe how do we engage with them automatically or manually. But I was just thinking this was quite an interesting one. The first part here, give them something special. It's just we do a lot of research around email design and strategies and stuff, and this is just, I find really interesting. Honesty is always the best policy, and this is very much an email about re-engaging. So we've maybe used some of the tactics I'm going to show you today to identify a group of contacts that maybe haven't purchased for a while, or are not really engaging, or whatever. And what's that good practice to get back in contact and convince them to come back on board. And a lot of research, as it will show you here, really is about just being honest. This whole thing around hello stranger, or where have you been, and all this sort of stuff. Let's acknowledge that. Let's talk about, it's been a while, you've not been back. So things might have changed, right? So if it's this hello stranger idea is around things have changed. We've got a new season, we've got new products coming in. Why don't you come back, have a look at what we've gone on, what's going on? So there's a lot of that sort of ownership of the relationship has kind of lapsed. And let's talk about that, and let's kind of remind people and get them back on board. They might be missing stuff, right? So maybe we talk about how we've changed and the new stuff. The other thing that he talks about in here is obviously look at offers, look at relevant offers. So we got win back offers, I guess, so re-engagement offers and all that kind of stuff, like coupon codes and so on. And one that was quite good, I was reading through the background of this, is that people spend a lot of time identifying lapsed customers. They spend some time building beautiful campaigns and sending these campaigns out, and they're really daft ones where they don't put decent call to actions on. So it was a kind of making sure that we're acknowledging the fact that we're kind of re-engaging, we're giving them some kind of incentive or in persuasive reasons to come back, but also we're making it very clear there's a call to action on that email to go and do this thing, to re-engage or whatever. So just some stuff in here. Have a read through this, and quite interesting stuff. I'm not going to tell you how to build emails. I'm sure you're all experts at it, but I found that quite interesting, just the kind of that it's proven that the honesty is the best policy, and let's kind of own that relationship. Change your status, it's complicated on Facebook and all that. Right. So the rest of the stuff I'm going to look at is in here as well, but we're going to go through and just physically look at this in the platform. So the first bit I want to look at is not even in here. It's about identifying lapsed customers, right? How do we identify them? Because it's a bit too late once they've shot off, right? Disappeared off and found a new supplier. So how can we identify them? And the really simple thing we can do is look at all of the data that you've got coming through into your Dotdigital account. So I'm going to go into segments, the segmentation tool here. I'm not going to build a massive segment, as I'm sure those of you that are using the platform to its full potential are probably using segmentation anyway. But for those that aren't, I'm going to just show you some really good sort of bits of segmentation tools. So what we're going to do is go into the contacts menu. In fact, we're just going to contacts, my contacts. You'll see there is a segment section there, but we're going to jump into that in a second. Okay, so my contacts. This is where we store and manage all of those contact data, or those customer records, if you like. So we've got address books, and as you know, you can create up to 1,000 address books to store various groups of customers. Those of you that are using e-commerce connectors, such as, I don't know, Magento, or all of our commerce connector stuff, so Shopify, Big, Woo, Salesforce, Commerce Cloud, all that good stuff, and all the other ones that we link into as well. What you often find with those connectors is you will have address books that are in Dotdigital that are basically synchronizing across from the e-commerce platform and dropping into Dotdigital, updating every 15 minutes or so, pulling through that contact data automatically into your Dotdigital account. Really beautiful, kind of ready packed. What did Boris call it? Oven ready. I think you said, didn't he, the other day? Oven ready Brexit. Well, this is the oven ready connector to your e-commerce platform. So very simple to do. So one thing that we pull across is data fields, obviously. So loads of stuff about where contacts are, demographics, and the sales data that comes along with that. So with some of the connectors, you know, they provide things like average order value, last order date, last logged in date, total amount of revenue spent by each customer, total number of orders. Some of them talk about last category purchased, most frequent category purchased, most often or frequently purchased day or month. All this stuff, right, comes through from the e-commerce, and we can use that. We also have, with all these commerce connectors, the insight data, where we look at orders and cart insight, what's in the customer's cart, web insight, where are they going on the site, all this kind of stuff. So I'm going to go in and look at the segmentation tool now. So contacts and segments, or just the segments tab, either way. So we'll go in and have a look. Okay, so anyone that's connecting e-commerce into Dotdigital, this is essential. But if you're not, if you're B2B, my background is B2B, and we're manually uploading contacts in, or we're using any of those sort of CRM connectors, this is just genius for everyone. So segments, the difference between an address book and a segment is address book is effectively stupid. It doesn't really do a lot. It stores data in a very clever way, but it doesn't kind of do a lot unless you or some kind of connector add or remove people from an address book. The number of people in that address book will remain the same, whereas a segment is dynamic. It's like a query or a search string or a filter. You know, we create a set of rules, we apply those rules to the data, and then second by second, the number of people that match my rules is going to change, and that's a dynamic segment. So we're going to go in and just build on here. I'm not going to do massive segmentation training session, but I do want to talk about lapsed customers specifically. What can we do? So there's loads of templates here for the segments that you can use. So they're all editable and everything else. Let's have a look. Lapsed customers. Okay. There's one thing I can't show you here. I had a conversation with a Magento trainer the other day, a Magento merchant trainer the other day, and he just told me the best bit of wisdom, and I'd never heard it before. You probably know it. He was talking about he's a Magento trainer, so he's talking about that in Magento you can search, or you can do reporting on what are people searching for on your site. And he said the biggest thing that he kind of has trouble getting his customers to understand, or so effectively merchants to understand, is that every search on your site is, for every search term searched for, is effectively a qualified lead. People only search for what they're looking for. So that was quite interesting. We obviously, nevertheless, yeah. So that idea of every search term is a qualified lead. Someone is asking, do you serve that product? Right. So this is the segmentation tool. Two parts to a segment, those contacts that we want to include and the contacts we want to exclude. Include contacts that match these rules and then exclude any contacts that match these rules. Bom, 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 bom. And then on the left-hand side, we have a whole bunch of rules that we can drag in to our various areas. So in terms of numbers, you can use any combination of rules in include and or exclude. The only sort of limit is a maximum 30 rules in the segment total. So include, exclude, whatever, total maximum is 30. Okay, so let's just concentrate on lapsed customers. We won't going to do address books and stuff like that, but we'll look at a bit of just lapsed customers. So for example, I'm going to start with the data field, right? I'm going to do it like a ridiculous one. So you'll see here that I drag a rule in. I'm going to say include. So I want to include contacts. This is the first rule I've dragged in. Click into it to edit it. I can duplicate, delete, and I can move the rule around as well. So we'll start with the first rule, data fields, just as this example. So these are all the data fields I've got for various accounts and stuff like that. So you might have things like, let's have a look. Last order date. So this is a great one. No, this is a Magento data field, and some of the other e-commerce platforms use this as well. You might have last logged in date. So Shopify, for example, last logged in date, stuff like this. So really simple. I want to find people that have not ordered for a while. So show me contacts where the last order date occurs. Does not occur. The anniversary occurs. But I'm going to go last order date occurs today, before, on, or after a particular date, more than a number of days in the future or the past, in the next, in the last, in between. So I'm just going to say more than 90 days ago. I mean, it doesn't get any easier than that, does it? Include contacts whose last order date occurs more than 90 days ago. They've not ordered for 90 days. Okay, if you want to be more specific than that, we say include people whose last order date occurs before today by exactly 90 days. So think of that if we're going to think about automation. You know, we're going to talk about lapsed customer, abandoned browse, all this sort of stuff. We can automate all of this. So when we talk about segments, at the moment, I'm using the segmentation tool, and I am manually building a segment to which I am going to manually send an email. And that's one way of using it. Segmentation tool is incredible. But the other thing it's used for, and we'll see it later on, is of course the segmentation tool itself is the brains of automation, right? So if you think about anything you can identify using the segment, you can automatically act upon within a program, within one of our automated customer journeys. So this one, if I was building it to be automatic, I'd have a program that says, okay, every day, find me people whose last order date occurs before today by exactly 90 days, and then add them onto this journey, send them this email with my message about, you know, how we miss you and how we've lapsed and here's an offer and all that stuff. So remember, this drives automation as much as it's manual as well. So let's just say that one, before today by 90 days. That's a bit of an automation example. So data fields are going to help us find lapsed customers. A big one is insight data. So insight data is going to something we set up where we're kind of looking into the store, we're connecting to the store. Part of the connector that we do, our commerce connector that we do as well. So insight data. And there's a few different types. The ones I'm going to focus on are order data. So what customers have purchased what and all that sort of stuff. Cart insight, who's got what in their cart, and web insight, who's been where on my website. All right, again, so think about, we talk about lapsed customers. So just orders, just as another one, because not everyone's on Magento, of course. So we go orders. So when we talk about insight data, think of everything as a record or a transaction. So I want to include contacts where the number of order records is greater than or equal to 1, or in English, they've had at least one order. But we can put more than that. They've had more than one, less than one, and of course we can change the number. Who's got at least 5 orders? But if I say greater than or equal to 1, hit OK, that would include anyone that's ever ordered from your store, let's say. And we're looking, of course, at the whole history, order history of that store. So we're looking back as old as the store is, who's ordered stuff ever, I guess, in this example. But where it gets clever and where we start thinking about lapsed customers is where we filter this data. So we could be sort of quite simple and say, okay, well, which store purchase date? Show me people who have at least one order and the purchase date occurs, does not occur, the anniversary occurs. So again, very similar to that data field example. The purchase date occurs more than 90 days ago. So it doesn't matter what e-com platform you're using. If you're going to be using our commerce connector, bang, insight data, show me people at least one order, but the order date occurs more than 90 days ago. So lapsed customer, right? And of course you can just, if I hit OK and then save or generate count, it would just tell me, oh, you've got 500 people whose last order was 90 days ago. So I come back in and change it. Okay, well, people that have 60 or 180 days, and we can just start looking at these people and identifying them. So that's a really simple one. Who's not ordered in the last 90 days? They've got one order, but it was not in the last 90 days. And we can play around with that very much as we saw with the data field. But with insight data, particularly order data, we can be much more targeted. So, okay, they haven't ordered in the last 90 days. But we want to say, well, they have ordered certain products, maybe. So who ordered certain products or categories, but they haven't ordered them in the last 90 days? So we would probably do it the other way around in terms of the order I put the rules in, but it makes no difference really at all. So if I did something like, so this is order insight, by the way. So we've got, which store are we referring to? You've probably got multiple stores, different languages and so on, different regions. Delivery and billing information. So show me people who got at least one order more than 90 days ago and they live in Paris. Maybe it's about product, by product name, product SKU code or product code or category. So let's just use, I don't know, SKU codes, so product code. So show me people that have at least one order, but it was not in the last 90 days, it was more than 90 days ago, and the product SKU was equal to, not equal to, contained, started with, is one of, whatever. So you could just sort of say, who's bought, let's just say that's a ridiculous SKU code. Show me people that bought that product more than 90 days ago, okay? We could get a bit broader, maybe starts with, or is one of. Show me people, and this is line separate. You could paste the list in here, by the way, loads of SKU codes or product names. Include or people who bought any of these products more than 90 days ago. So you can start to not only see when did they buy, but what did they buy, that kind of stuff. So you might want to look at stuff like that. This starts to lead on a little bit to replenishment programs. Show me people that bought these products and the product date occurred more than 90 days ago. Again, it occurred before today by 90 days. So who bought these products exactly 90 days ago? So if we were doing replenishment, I know it's not lapsed, but it does help you to avoid getting lapsed clients if you're proactively sending emails out that are getting customers to replenish their products. So that might be another one there. Okay, so we've got what did they buy, when did they buy it? Again, purchase date with orders. Excuse me. Another rule we can use, as well as orders will tell us what did they buy, what did they not buy, when did they buy it or not, how many did they buy, what did they spend, all of that stuff, okay? Another one, though, might be cart insight. So this is just one, it's another piece of insight data that we can connect into your store. And it's just so underused, it's ridiculous, right? But it's cart, it's what is in the cart. So often you've got abandoned cart programs or abandoned basket programs, the old classic. We've been doing them since they invented this, haven't we? So someone puts a product in their basket and they bail out, they abandon, and then, I don't know, 15 minutes later, we send them an email and remind them, and then a day later, we send another one, remind them, and then whatever, a few days later, we send them an offer. Oh, cool. And that's great, but that's the classic abandoned cart. And people have been receiving them for just as long as we've been sending them, right? So they're good. But think about it in a different way. Cart insight tells me or identifies a group of customers that have things ready to go. They're in the products in the cart. So cart insight, we could say, include people where the number of cart insight records is greater than or equal to 1. So people have got at least one thing in their cart, right? And we can obviously change that. What have they got in their cart? So we've got all that stuff, again, line items. Who's got this stuff in their cart? These products, those products, who's got this in their cart? But what I was thinking is just things like, grand total, line items. I've got subtotal somewhere, might use that. Use whatever, grand total will do then. Who's got X amounts worth of product in their cart? So yes, we're looking for people that that have lapsed a little bit, but you might find people that have lapsed, but they've still got product in their cart, right? So they've not ordered for a little while, but when we go and have a look at what's in the cart, they are so close, because just because they've lapsed doesn't mean they're not active, just means they're not converting, right? So we could say, show me people that haven't ordered for 90 days, but Cart Insight tells us they've got at least one record, and the grand total in their cart is, I don't know, more than, if we say in pounds, £250. So show me people who've got more than £250 worth of product in their cart. When did it go in? Modified date. So £250 worth of product in the cart, and the modified date occurs in the last 90 days. So if I start comparing these rules, show me people who've not ordered for 90 days, but show me people that have got more than £250 worth of product in their cart, and it was modified in the last 90 days. Yes, it's lapsed, but it was active in a sense, because they were looking, they just haven't converted. So maybe these guys are someone we can target with a conversion message, because the product's already in the cart. So that kind of thing. Show me people with a number of certain products in the cart, number of products in the cart, a cart value, that sort of stuff. An obvious one that we'll see a bit later on again is web insights, of course. So we're looking for people who, maybe haven't visited the site for a little while. We're going to talk about abandoned browse a bit later on. But web insights is where we use cookies to identify where your contacts have been on your site. We're monitoring web behavior effectively, or tracking web behavior, I should say. So when you set up web insights, and I'd be very surprised if anyone that's connecting stores to Dotdigital is not using web insights. Effectively, the simple terms, we give you some code, you put that code on every page of the site, and you have then cookies. So any contact goes to your site from any source, we drop a cookie on their browser, and we monitor where they go on the site. And that's effectively anonymous to start with, a bit like Google Ads and all that sort of stuff. It's just, it's recognizing the browser, not Johnny customer. But obviously we've got your contacts in the database, in the contact database. So if you've got someone that's been gone to the site and they've had a cookie applied to their browser, and then we send them an email and they click a link from that email to the site, effectively we can connect those two pieces of data, the web behavior with the individual contact details. So now we can start to see individuals who are doing stuff on the site. So again, we do it at a kind of transactional level. So include contacts where the number of now web insights records is greater than or equal to one, or at least one. Of course, we can change this. Who's been to the site at least once? And again, we start to talk about, well, which website? Where did they go? So which pages did they go to? This kind of thing. So I don't know if I just say page URL. Who's been to at least one visit to my site, or visit to a page where the URL was equal to, and we whack in a URL, who's been to that page, who's not been to that page, who's been to a page that started with that, or is one of that, one of those, I should say, and so on, right? So at least one visit of going to one of those pages. But more interestingly, of course, we've got session start. Who's been to one of those pages, and the session start occurred in the last so many days, or more than, again, 90 days. Could be any page, couldn't it? Simply be who's not been to the site in so many days, regardless of whether they came from an email or whether they came from any other channel. So again, where did they go on the site? Where did they not go? When did they go there? There's lots of other stuff around how long they were there for and how many pages they looked at. But again, it's just a bit of insight how to identify those guys. And then the final thing is RFM scores. So you have this little section here, the e-commerce section, commerce intelligence it's called. And it's one of the things it does is it breaks down, it slices up your customers using RFM personas. It breaks them down into 6 different RFM personas, from inactive customers who have spend no money, don't buy frequently, and have not purchased recently. So RFM, by the way, is recency, frequency, and monetary value. And then up to the other end, which is champions, which spend a lot of money regularly, and their last order was recent. So we can use that scoring there as well. So RFM, if I drag this in, the RSM persona is automatically done for you based on all of the data we're pulling in from your store. And so these are the 6 personas: champions, loyal, recent, high potential, need nurturing. Now in the commerce intelligence section, you'll see a lot more information. But if I select high potential, which seems to be my favorite one here, it tells me what high potential means. Big and frequent spenders who need attention. Effectively, they haven't ordered recently. That's the thing. So we can identify them here. So that's a lapsing customer, isn't it? You spend a lot of money, you spend it frequently, but have not purchased recently. That kind of stuff. So you'll see RFM as another way of identifying those different customer groups, lapsing customers, and we calculate this for you individually and uniquely for your store, using the order insight and all that good stuff. So you've got a few options there to identify the lapsing contacts. Okay, so that's just your segmentation. Hopefully you will use that. Remember, there is a training video and lots of training material in the help area there. But building those segments is going to be huge. Okay, so the next thing on that sheet was preference centers. So I'm just going to jump into a different account here, and we'll just look at preference centers. Here. So preference centers gives you an opportunity to ask your customers for a little bit more information about themselves. So in every account, there is a preference center. You can turn it's by default turned on, but you can turn it off if you want. 2 types in a US account. Your preference center is an additional button. So you've got the unsubscribe button where people do a straight unsubscribe and they just get unsubscribed. And there's also an option to add a separate button or a separate link to the preference center. Outside of the UK, the US region, so the rest of the world, I guess, the preference center is part of the unsubscribe process. So there's a slight difference there. So I'm just going to show you how to turn on the preference center first of all. Or to edit it, I should say. So in our little settings menu down at the bottom left, we go to account. So settings, account, and we've got account settings here. So settings, account, and account settings. And so, as I say, for everyone really, there is a preference center. So what we're looking at really is this bit here, the unsubscribe and preference center settings. So by default, okay, in the US, this first drop down is set to show the unsubscribe page. So when a contact clicks to the unsubscribe link, show unsubscribe page. What that means is the unsubscribe link is a straight unsubscribe, and then in your link drop down in the email editor, you get an additional link option to add a link to the preference center. Okay, and if you're in a non-US account, you can do that as well. It's no problem. So you could just change that, and then you'd have 2 links. But in a non-US account, by default, when a contact clicks the unsubscribe link, the default setting is this: show the preference center chosen below, and it is always the default preference center. So in effect, there's only one link, and that link, it's called unsubscribe, but effectively, when the contact clicks on it, we take them to the preference center, because you can unsubscribe from the preference center. But you could change that if you want to, if you're for a non-US account. Just slight difference in legislation there in the US. They have to have a one click, one purpose unsubscribe link. So show the preference center chosen below. So there's a couple of options with preference centers. So I'm going to show you the default preference center built into every Dotdigital account, but you have got options. So you could build one externally. You might have a survey tool, or you might have a preference center that's connected to the store or to your CRM or whatever. We could just link to that particular preference center. Or you can build a custom preference center using our pages and forms tool there. So just, gives you a lot more control over design and features and a different way of collecting data, all that sort of stuff. But it will still update the customer record, which I guess is the point of a preference center. So let's have a look. So show default preference center. I'll show you what mine looks like here. So a little preview of the preference center. 2 ways to look at your preference center. Just send yourself an email and click unsubscribe. We'll take you to the preference center. Or like I did, settings, account settings, and then hit preview. So this is my preference center. And there are three things that show in a preference center. There's some stuff that shows for everyone. So the email and all that good stuff at the top, that shows for everyone. But the three things that we can control are data fields. Do we want to show data fields? And if you show a data field, as you can see there, excuse me, we see the data in the data field. So my name is actually David Training there. And I can, of course, edit that if I change my name. So we can see data fields that the contact can edit. We can also see preferences, marketing preferences that you can build within your account, and we'll see those a bit later on. And also you can see address books. So the contact can add themselves or remove themselves from address books. And click here to join the, I don't know, the newsletter address book. And a newsletter is this, because we want to describe those things in more detail. So first of all, I'm just going to show you how to add and remove this stuff, right? So let's go for your details. These are data fields. I'm going to leave my preference center sort of preview open here and go back into the account. So we'll start with data fields. So let's go back to contacts and contact data fields. Okay. So this is where we manage the data field. So remember, you can create up to 400 data fields in your account, specific to your account. We've got a bunch of sort of standard ones here. The default, everyone's got those. But in my data fields, you can create up to 400. So different data you're going to collect, different maybe questions you're going to ask in the preference center from your customers. Remember, we can spy on customers. We can identify behavior, and then we can automatically update data fields and marketing preferences as part of an automated journey. Very sneaky. Okay, so I'm just going to do, I'll just create one really simply, like a silly one. Let's say new data field. And you can do this, of course, in your account, create a new one. So I'm going to say favorite color. Favorites color in there, and that's a text field. You so I can create text, numeric, date, and yes, no data fields, but favorite color, save. Now, I'm glad that worked like that. So when I create the data field, the key thing to remember, and we can edit data fields, is the public and private label, okay? Public means that this data field will show in the preference center and can show in any surveys or forms that we produce. If it is private, it will not show in the preference center, and it cannot be shown in any forms or surveys that we produce, okay? So let's call this favorite color 2, and let's make it public. So make that public. So that will show in the preference center. And while that's just saving, I'll just point out how you can edit this stuff. So for example, if I go into the properties of any data field here, properties, you see I can edit that public and private setting there, public, private. So I can decide whether I want this to show or not. Remember, public shows in the preference center and can be added to forms. Private will not show in the preference center and cannot be added to forms. So if I go back now to my preference center, we'll see the data fields there, hit refresh, bang, favorite color 2. Now, this is one of the things, the fallbacks, the slight drawbacks of the data field. They're all in alphabetical order, and you see how it's got the underscore and all that in. So they're not beautiful, right? They're functional, but that's the name of my data field. That's literally the name of my data field. So it's going to have underscores and hyphens and stuff like that. So another option you then have is marketing preferences here, your preferences, okay? So these are slightly different. They can be edited. We can get them to be automatically edited in a program as well. But they're a bit easier on their eye. They're a bit more sort of user-friendly, and we can add some context as well, you know, to the questions we're asking. So we'll leave our preview open and go back now to the contacts menu, but this time marketing preferences. I do apologize. As I said, I've probably got the starters of yellow fever, my yellow fever injection this morning for my Amazon trip. So, you know, I could be dying as we speak. 9 people in a million apparently die from just having the inoculation. I'm not that special. So here's my marketing preferences, okay? And there's 2 things. There is a preference and a category. So I've got this example about selling cars, right? So the category is the type of car that I want, that people like. And then my preferences are the actual car type. So if we add some new ones in here, new preference or category. So let's think about what kind of communications does the customer want. So we'll start with a category, and we might call it, I don't know, communication. So that's my private name, and I can change the public name. So you might be like, how would you like us to get in touch, or something like that? Obviously, I'm just making it up. I'm sure take some advice on that. So it's a category, public name, how would you like us to get in touch? Private name, communication, I don't know, preferences. Preferences. And create. So you'll see in a second here, communications preferences. Now I can reorder this stuff by just kind of dragging it up and down, which I probably will do. Communication preferences. So now I can add some actual preferences in. So preference, not category. So let's just say, newsletter. I have that as the internal one, but maybe something a bit more descriptive for the public view. So this might be news, reviews, and offers, something like that. And like we said in that research, the more you can tell them about what they're signing up for, what's a newsletter? Is that just an excuse to send marketing gumph, or is it actually a newsletter? Is it actually going to be interesting stuff? So give it some proper descriptive, or a proper description there. So do I want this to be public or private? So I could say, no, I don't want it to show. I could make it private, but I'm going to make mine public. And then I can add it to my category or not. But of course, I'm going to add that. So let's say newsletter, create, communications preferences now has newsletter, and that's the public name. I'll add one more just to kind of do it again. Newsletter. I might the other one be, I don't know, offers. So I don't know. Latest. Oops. Offers from Dotdigital and friends, or something like that. Public or private, put it in a category or not. You'll see special offers is not in a category there. And then you see, and I've hit save, it's added that in. So let's go back to our preference center, hit refresh, and you'll see there the preferences have changed. And that's a much better idea here. It's explaining what does a newsletter mean, what do I mean by offers, and that seems to have quite an impact in people kind of understanding what it is that we're asking them to sign up for. And so we've got data fields, marketing preferences, and the final one is actually in my contacts is the address books themselves. So we might have an address book for, I don't know, let's just create this one here. Hire first, for example. You can create up to 1,000 address books, of course. So you might have one that is, again, newsletter or whatever you want to call it, but give it a decent description. And I can go into the properties of any address book. And again, it's public and private. So if the address book is public, it will show in the preference center. If it's private, it will not. So let's make that public. So there was not an address book section in our preference center because I didn't have any selected. So it doesn't actually show the entire section, but now I have got one. You'll see an address book section has now been added down at the bottom. And there we go. So that's my preference center. Obviously, you can have as large or as little as you want. This is the default. Remember, you can just link to, you can build one in the pages and forms, and we could link to that as well as the preferences. And of course, that will also update the contact information. So that's your preference center, really, with all that good stuff. And then I just want to kind of go back into some of the other stuff we talked about, or that marketing document talks about SMS, talks about push notifications, Google ads, and Facebook ads as well. So how can we find those different channels to go down? So what I wanted to do to kind of just show you that was to build a lapsed customers program, right? Really, really simple. So let's have a look. We wanted web insights and we wanted order insights. So let's use this one. Okay, so I'm going to build a program. Again, if you're not using programs, in the help section here, there are training videos specifically on building programs. It's essential, really. So let's have a look. Build new program. So there we go. So we're going to build a lapsed customer program, and we're going to engage that lapsed customer on pretty much every channel. Lots of program templates here, so definitely worth a look. There are lots of re-engagement and all this sort of stuff in there that you can use. You can see there. So have a look through. I'm going to build one from a blank template. But these are pre-made programs ready to go. You can edit them. They're already on the page, so quite useful. Let's have a look. Lapsed customers. Okay. So firstly, just a really simple example of building maybe an abandoned browse, just for those that haven't built one of these programs, an abandoned browse program, just to show how ridiculously simple it is. So this is your program builder, okay? Automated customer journeys. These things are called nodes. Start node is already on the page because there's only one start node in a program, and its job is to add people to the program. And we have lots of other nodes here. And the way it works is every node performs a single task. They all do one thing. We put them in a line, we push the customer through. That is your automated journey. There's a bit more finesse than that, but effectively that's what we're doing. Colored boxes in a line, push customers through it, Bob's your uncle, that sort of stuff. So we'll start with the start node though. So this one might be an abandoned browse, sorry. So I'm going to use that, but we're kind of talking about lapsed customers. We saw how we would identify them earlier on in the segment. So, okay, so in a start node, when do we add people? Who do we add? And how often do we add them? So let's start at the top, the schedule. So I'm going to do an abandoned browse, right? So let's say every day at a certain time. Now you've got lots of options there: daily, weekly, monthly, set date, no scheduled enrollment. All of the e-commerce connectors have that, so you can add them directly on from the e-commerce platform as well, which I would imagine you're having training if you've got that. If not, it will explain that in all the training videos anyway. But I'm saying every day 11 o'clock is my example. And then my rule is going to be this abandoned browse, okay? So we're going to go to a segment there and create a new segment. So you saw the segment earlier on, pretty much endless stuff that we can do. All of that stuff. Are they in a certain address book? Is there a data field value I'm looking for? Is there a certain RFM, order insight, web insight, cart insight, all of that stuff? But I'm showing a really simple example. You can make this much more sort of granular if you want. But I'm going to say, okay, every day, find me people that have, let's start with web insights. So I want to find people that have been to my website in the last, I don't know, day. We'd go be aggressive for a change. So web insights. So show me people that have at least one record of visiting my site. So I can pick the name of the site, or I can leave it blank. So at least one record. And the session start, occurs in the last, I don't know. Let's be a bit more targeted. It's a bit wishy-washy if we don't. So let's talk about a certain area. So who's been to a certain section of my website? So website starts with, so let's pretend I sell cars. So www.cars.com / 4x4. Okay, so who's got at least one record of going to the web page that starts with 4x4s.com, cars.com / 4x4. So my 4x4 section of my site. And the session start occurred in the last day. Be aggressive. We could say 24 hours, we could say today. I'm saying the last day. So look for people that at least one visit to my 4x4 section in the last day. Okay, that's who I want to include. A lot of people. But then I'm going to exclude anyone. So I've got order insights, a bit of a daft example. Exclude anyone that's purchased a 4x4 in the last day. Now, again, I'm being quite aggressive with selling cars here, but you wouldn't have to do it like that. So let's say orders. So if I say product by, we'll use SKU code just as a daft example. You'd have product name, obviously, and all this sort of stuff. There you go. Product name contains the word 4x4, and that's how my products are built. So exclude people that have at least one order of buying a product where the name contains the phrase 4x4 and the purchase date occurs in the last day. Okay, so you could be much more granular than this, obviously. So include people that have been to the site in the last, to the 4x4 section in the last day. Exclude anyone that's bought a 4x4 in the last day. Gap analysis gives me people that looked at 4x4s but did not buy them, right? Abandon browse. There's lots of ways of doing it. That's a really clear example. Include people that looked at them, exclude people that bought them, leave me with the people that looked at them and did not buy them. Now you can obviously change that in lots of different ways, but that's a really simple abandon browse, like so. So just to give you really just an example there. So every day at 11 o'clock, we're looking for people that abandoned browsed on my 4x4 cars. Okay, looked at them but didn't buy them in the last day. Pretty aggressive. And then the enrollment limit, you'll see if I hit this, it basically determines how many times do we add an individual onto this journey. It always selects for you. It selects it automatically, and it's always the best option, but you can override it. And it's decided this one: enroll contacts on the program only the first time they meet the start criteria. So basically only add people onto this journey once. You could do it differently. I mean, you could sort of, with the one I'm doing, add them onto the program every time or every day they match the start criteria. Every time they look at the 4x4s and don't buy them, get them on. Or maybe we go to the third option. Every time they abandon browse, but not if they've abandoned browsed in the last 30 days. So you can kind of build in lots of different rules there. So they're still looking 30. That's probably a good one, actually. Re-enroll contacts on the program if they meet the start criteria, but not if they've been enrolled in the last 30 days. So I'm going to say 14 days there. So basically, every day at 11 o'clock, look for people who abandoned browsed on my 4x4 cars and add them onto the program when they do it, but not if they've done it in the last 14 days. So they're only ever on this program, every other 14 days if they're still looking for 4x4s. So that's just an abandoned browse example, but it shows you how simple that is. They did this, but they did not do that. Now let's action that. So if you can identify it in a segment, you can act upon it automatically in a program. So obviously we can send emails, as we know. So we would just do a usual campaign. So we'll send an email very quickly, drag in a campaign node there. So I dragged it onto the page. I let them connect up there. You can break the connection. You can manually connect. I'm just going to choose a campaign. So select an existing campaign here. So I'm just going to take one of these. It's not really the important part, really, this, but we'll just get it on. Okay. So every day I look for people that have abandoned browsed my 4x4s, and I'm going to add them onto the program here, push them to the campaign node, which will send them a campaign automatically. But then we think about those other channels, right? So we send a campaign, easy peasy, all day long. But there's other things you want to do. SMS messages. So we could, there's all kinds of things here. We could put a decision node in to say, did they buy a 4x4? So we could just do that daft thing again, couldn't we? Say, okay, let's have a look. So my question is, did they buy a 4x4? So I might wait. So I could wait for a day or something like that in there. In fact, let's just do that so it's a bit more sensible. So we send them the campaign. We put a delay node in. We can change that delay node to anything, wait a set number of days and wait till a set time of the week, set date of the month. I'm just going to say, well, let's give them 3 days. I'll put a time in there as well. Okay. So we add them onto the program. We send them a campaign. We wait 3 days until midday on day 3. And then we say, did they buy? Have they bought anything? So we ask the question, same as we did before. A decision node is a condition, which is the question, and then when do we answer the question? So select the condition, and my condition is very simple. So I'm going to build a segment that I kind of already built there, which is, did they buy a 4x4 in the last 3 days? So let's have a look. So I would use my order insight, include people, at least one order of buying a product where the name contains 4x4. I hope this is making sense. And the purchase date occurs, what was a 3-day wait, occurs in the last 3 days. Okay, so include people who have bought a 4x4 in the last 3 days. So let's just say 4x4. Okay, so the question is, did they buy one effectively? Have they bought a 4x4 in the last 3 days? Yes or no. It can only be a yes or no answer. I'm going to make that decision immediately. So if the answer is yes, they've bought a 4x4, I'll go, okay, well, they've done what I wanted, right? So we'll get rid of them. because they've done it. Thank you very much. You bought a 4x4. So we'll end those people off the program. EndNode removes them from the program if they purchased a 4x4. Then we say, well, these guys haven't. So now we go, right, what are we going to do? Let's use some other channels. So this is where we build in the other channel bits. So obviously a big one is going to be SMS. So drag in an SMS node here. In that resource section I showed you right at the start, dotdigital.com resources in there. There's a whole webinar I did on setting up your SMS. Everyone's got SMS in Dotdigital. It's all part of the package. You've got the broadcast SMS, which is this section over here, which is a separate database, and you like a classic SMS broadcast tool, really. Send and receive replies and all that good stuff. And then also you have SMS here, which is within the email system. So it's the email contact database rather than a separate SMS database. And we're using these guys, but we can send a message. So we do our message. So just a simple SMS message here. So who am I sending it from? Let's say it's from the Dotdigital team. Nice bit of something in there. Hello. So we can use personalization in all this stuff. So we can still pull through things like first name, all that stuff as well. So if I just search for first name there, we can pull this through. And you can pull through kinds of stuff. We can drop links in, obviously. We can pull through personalization, all that kind of thing. The only real thing with SMS is it's charged in segments. So a segment in SMS is 160 characters. So anything over 160 characters costs another segment. So it's stitched together. It looks like the same message, but it's actually two parts. So 160 characters is one credit, if you like. And if you double that, if you go over that, it's going to instantly go on to a second sort of section of the message. It doesn't look like a separate section. It just is, because it's sent out. It's broken down, charged in these sections of 160 characters. So yeah, so we build our message, etc. Preview if we want, apply. That node is going to send out that message automatically when the contact gets here. So we sent the campaign, we waited 3 days, we said, did they buy a 4x4? No. Okay, now we sent an SMS, check your email. There's an amazing offer in your email on 4x4 cars, get to it, blah, blah, link to the page, link to, whatever it might be. So we send SMS, all good. But we can go multiple ways. We can maybe make another decision and try, okay, we want to try a different channel now. So the other channels we've got, push notifications. If you have an app, it's very simple for you to set this up, or your developers probably to set this up. We can then now identify individual contacts as they're coming through here as an individual, remember, not as a group. And we can say, send a push notification, again, using personalization if we want to here. So we can still use first name and all that good stuff in the push notification through the app directly to your contact in there as well. So SMS, push notifications in there as well. And then, of course, the other two, actually I have down here, you've got Messenger as well, Facebook Messenger, but they're really for transactional messages rather than promotional messages. We've got Facebook and Google ads. So if we want to take this off, to start doing display ads, so they're looking, they've abandoned browse. I'm selling 4x4 cars. They've had a look. Maybe there's some in the basket. Maybe I've done an abandoned browse like this. And you know what? I want to follow them around. I want to start showing them this on Google ads, or if they're on Facebook, showing them Facebook ads. So this is where we use this. So if I drag in the Google ads node here, so if you're doing Google ads, as you know, you build a target list called an audience of the people that you want to display those ads to. So you can do it in Google and you build the audience, people that like 4x4s, however you do all that good stuff. But what you can also do is I've also found people that like 4x4s because they browsed them. So when they get to this node in my program, if I click into it, I can now automatically add anyone that goes through this node. So I pick my account, there's my account there. And I can add them to any of my audiences that I already have. So I have a few ad audiences in here. Or if I don't have any, I can create a new audience in Google Ads from here. So I create a new audience, and then anyone that hits that node is pushed straight through into Google Ads. So quite interesting. Obviously, so you can build lookalike audiences. Show me everyone that's interested in 4x4s, and just create a lookalike audience. What does that mean? What other things, what other traits do they have that we might be able to identify? So you've got Google Ads and you've got Facebook audiences. So the same thing really, or same premise. We're pushing those contacts through from here. We're now also pushing them through to those other channels. So display ads in Facebook or Google Ads, that kind of thing. So we're taking it all the way from an email, SMS, push notifications if you've got an app, Google Ads if you're using Google Ads, and Facebook audiences or Facebook ads if you're using those. So we're pushing through to those different areas, all built around chasing those lapsed customers. Okay, so let's have a look. So this is the document. Definitely have a look for it. It's quite interesting, but I'm sure we'll attach it next time we go out. 5 super effective tactics to re-engage lapsed leads. Okay, so I hope that was of some use. Of course, we looked at all this idea of maybe the kind of email we might build, owning that relationship and the fact that we've lapsed. We looked at building segments where we can identify lapsed customers using all of that stuff. And we kind of went around the preference center, and then we went into the program builder, and we looked at those different sort of omni-channel, I guess you call that, multiple channels. Yeah, and there we are. So hopefully that was of some use. Any questions, please shout them out. I'm going to stop the recording now. But if you've got any questions, just ping them through. But thank you very much for listening. Merry Christmas. Fa la 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 la. Okay.